These are the stories topping the news. 6 CPL teams announced retained players for 2015 tournament. Jurors banned for life in Antigua and Barbuda, and Sudan rebels free Bulgarian aid workers. Good afternoon and welcome to ZIZ's Midday Newscast for today, Monday, February 2nd, 2015. I am JD Keynes. Now for a look at the news in detail. With the CPL Draft 2015 fast approaching, each of the 6 franchises participating in this year's tournament has retained the maximum number of 4 players from the 2014 squads. The newly formed St. Kitts and Nevis franchise will be taking over the players from the Antigua Hawksbill franchise, which will not be fielding a team for the 2015 season. The selections of the 6 teams have been much anticipated, further adding to the excitement of the upcoming draft, which takes place this Thursday, February 5th in Kingston, Jamaica. Of the 24 retained players, 22 come from the Caribbean, with the big guns Gale, Pollard, Narain, Bravo and Sammy all retained. The 2 retained international players are England's Kevin Peterson and Pakistan's Malik. Other retained players are Carlos Brathwaite, Lyndall Simmons, Andre Russell, Devon Thomas, Darren Bravo, Dwayne Smith, Dennis Ramdin, Jerome Taylor, Orlando Peters, Johnson Charles, Samuel Badri, Ravi Rampal, Christopher Barnwell, Chadwick Walton, Justin Athenaeus, and Andre Fletcher, and Kevin Cooper. The St. Kitts and Nevis team will take over responsibility for the players from the Leeward Islands. CPL Operations Director Michael Hall said, quote, "Looking at the list of retained players, you will see the strategy has been to retain the local stars. It will make for an absorbing draft as the heavyweight international players become available for selection. We are all excited to see how the squads shape up, and no doubt there will be a few surprises when the coaches choose their picks on Thursday evening in Kingston," end quote. Business operators on St. Kitts and Nevis have until the close of business today, Monday, to pay their business licenses at the Inland Revenue Department. Recently, Senior Tax Inspector Sonia Body shared the new deadline and encouraged those affected to comply, noting that failure to pay business licenses on time would result in operators having to pay 1% interest per month for each month that their business license is unpaid. Body said there are other penalties in place for non-compliant business operators, but stressed that her department seeks more to encourage compliance than reprimand business operators. She also said in cases where businesses have been registered but are no longer active, operators need to communicate with their department.
There are persons, for example, they have a business license or they would have been registered but they're not operating. It's also important that you come in and you inform us and you complete the termination of registration form as well, because once we'll check our system after the deadline, we're going to start calling persons and telling them, well, you're not in compliance with the legislation and you'll need to come in and pay. And then you might say, well, I've not been operating, but unless you come in and inform us that, as far as we're concerned, you're in non-compliance. We don't know that. So it's important that any change in terms of your business status, whether you're going to be inactive for a period of time or you're closing your business, it's important that you update us at the department as well.
That was Senior Tax Inspector at the Inland Revenue Department, Sonia Body. In related news, a Senior Tax Inspector attached to the Inland Revenue Department, Sonia Body, says applying for a business license is easy. Recently, Body sat down with ZIZ's Jason Davis and explained the procedure.
To apply for a business license, for those persons who might be interested in starting a business in the Federation, you simply have to complete an application for registration at the Ministry of Finance and submit 2 pieces of photo ID, a copy. You submit your 2 pieces of photo ID as well as your application, and it goes to the Ministry of Finance, and they will basically consider your application and they'll approve it. Once it's approved, it will be sent to us down at the Inland Revenue Department, and we'll contact you. We'll inform you as to the cost for that particular business license, and when you come to us, we're going to process it and we're going to give you a little advisory session, inform you of your rights, responsibilities and obligations as a now legally registered entity within the Federation.
We move now to news on the regional scene. In Antigua, Justice Albert Redhead on Wednesday placed a lifelong ban on 10 jurors accused of delivering a court perverse verdict. The case involved an 18-year-old man who was on trial for allegedly having sexual intercourse with a 13-year-old girl. In delivering his remarks following the not guilty verdict, the judge deemed the permanent restriction necessary. He said he imposed it using the court's inherent jurisdiction to protect the process from abuse. When the jury's verdict was declared late Tuesday, reportedly 10 of the 12 members found the man not guilty, while 2 female jurors felt he was guilty of the crime. Justice Redhead told the court he could not recall seeing such perversion of justice in his 30 years as an officer of the court. Queen's Counsel Dane Hamilton has said, however, that Justice Redhead overreacted when he decided to impose the lifetime ban on the 10 jurors. Hamilton said while one may disagree with the outcome of the trial, the case was done according to the legal requirements, and the accused was judged by his peers. Hamilton added that if the jurors feel, quote, sufficiently aggrieved by the decision against them, they can seek judicial review in an effort to clear their good name. Deputy Prime Minister Philip J. Peer says the government of St. Lucia has made every effort to keep citizens abreast with current affairs. He argues, however, that a seeming lack of trust in politicians has distorted the debate on matters of national importance, such as the fuel price adjustment.
The administration has been under heavy fire for what has been described as a failed public relations campaign on the fuel price adjustments. Members of the opposition UWP and even supporters and members of the ruling party say the incumbent's education drive was lackluster. However, the Deputy Prime Minister says it is a constant uphill battle to inform the nation of government policy when many people are cynical about the institution of government itself.
And I think that probably is the government's problem. The government allows these things to pass, believing that these things are so outrageous that people will not believe. But the fact is, some people seem to believe. Look at how more can you explain the gas prices? How more can you explain the Bois-de-Wange Bridge? What more explanation you can give?
Pierre contends many St. Lucians have a negative perception of politicians. He posits that mistrust in government has become ingrained in the minds of many St. Lucians. Despite this assertion, he says St. Lucians should seek the facts and be informed before voicing their opinions.
We have generated an era of cynicism in the country. Cynicism and a kind of negativity that pervades the entire atmosphere. Even a kind of unhappiness, which is, I know, because every day people are being told things are hard, this country has never been so hard before.
Pierre believes the negative outlook transcends the realm of the cautious skeptics. Over the past few months, he has expressed concern that criticism has perhaps devolved into a doom and gloom culture, fed by an attitude of hopelessness that permeates the island's airwaves. He says there needs to be a shift in the mindset of St. Lucians, adding that despite some challenges, the incumbent has recorded successes during the 3 years in office. Jade Brown, HTS News Force.
Internationally, 6 Bulgarian UN aid workers who were detained by rebels in Sudan's strife-torn South Kordofan region have been released. Julie Nose reports.
Thank you.
Bulgarian aid workers shake hands with the Sudanese governor of South Kordofan and a military committee. They've just been released by rebel forces of Sudan's People's Liberation Army North after their helicopter made an emergency landing while flying through an active war zone. The team was working for the UN's World Food Program and had been on a routine maintenance flight from South Sudan to the Sudanese capital, Khartoum. Upon identifying themselves and confirming that their flight path had been approved by authorities, they were released.
They authorizing it, they saying yes. It's written which date, at what time you are taking off, what route you are following, what altitude, what time you are arriving. And nobody says nothing. Nobody asked, they just accepted the flight plan and nobody says, hey, why this road?
Fighting in the area has escalated recently as Sudanese government forces and rebels rally for support in the run-up to general elections this April.
The U.S. has been measles-free for 15 years, but there has been a new outbreak which started at Disneyland in California. The theme park has been praised for its handling of the outbreak, which may have been triggered by an overseas visitor. The spread of cases across 7 states and Mexico is being blamed on parents who have chosen not to give their children the MMR vaccine due to concerns about potential side effects. No authoritative research has been published to back up claims that the vaccine may be linked to autism and bowel disease. Alistair Lighthead reports.
A few tears now for protection later. Most mums in California vaccinate their children against measles, mumps and rubella and other illnesses, but especially now. This latest measles outbreak started here at Disneyland, California at the end of December, probably brought here by a visitor from another country. But it's now spread to dozens of cases across 7 states and Mexico. But the worst affected is California, despite having a comprehensive vaccine program for many years. The number of households opting out of vaccines is on the increase. And looking at the figures, the richer and more upscale the neighborhood, the lower the vaccination rate. Less than half the children at this school have had the MMR jab, and there are some strong opinions to be heard at home time.
I felt like the worst of the two evils was to vaccinate them and have them have a negative reaction versus not vaccinate them and have them get sick for a week. Now that the measles is coming back, I will vaccinate my children, keep them safe from what's ever going around.
A friend of mine, her daughter developed autism shortly after her measles vaccinations. And so I did a lot of research and ultimately made the decision that the risk factors of getting the vaccination outweighed the risk factor of a measles outbreak.
I vaccinate. Vaccination is on par with parenting and religion. I think there's a lot of heated debates that happen around that, and I think a lot of misinformation. You know, we get this information, especially like this autism link with vaccinations, and when that information gets out there, whether it's a myth or not, people hang on to it, and so I think you have to debunk those myths.
The measles are so contagious, suspected patients come to a tent in the hospital car park to be assessed. It's dangerous but no longer a common illness. Here, it's taken extremely seriously.
Nowadays, people and even doctors rarely see cases of measles, so it's out of sight, out of mind. There really isn't a sense that measles is a problem anymore. You combine that with the fact that there's a lot of information out there, awful lot of it misinformation not based on science, that makes people worried that in fact there are dangers to these vaccines.
Airborne viruses love places like Disneyland, which has been praised by health officials for its response. The outbreak comes down to people's right to choose about vaccinations, for themselves and for those around them. Alistair Lighthead, BBC News in Orange County, California.
We turn now to the weather. Today will be partly cloudy to cloudy with isolated to widely scattered showers. Tonight will be partly cloudy with brief passing overnight showers. Winds are east to northeast at 12 to 21 miles per hour with higher spells over coastal waters. Temperatures will reach a high of 25 degrees Celsius. Sunset today is expected at 6:07 p.m. And that's how we wrap up ZIZ's Midday Newscast for today, Monday, February 2nd, 2015. Join us this evening when we'll have the details to these stories and more in our major newscasts. I have been your presenter, JD Keynes. Have a great afternoon.